In business centers across the province, this pandemic has induced an eerie quiet. That's especially true for places such as the normally bustling concourses beneath office towers everywhere. Think of all those coffee shops and gift stores, shoe repair, and myriad small service and retail outlets that thrive on the daily foot traffic of thousands of workers, many of whom are now working from home. What's become of those folks and their businesses? Well, let's find out. We're going to ask. In Bowmanville, Ontario, Grant Humes, he's Executive Director of the Toronto Financial District BIA, the Business Improvement Area. And here in the provincial capital, in the Beaches, Samantha Sanella, Managing Director of Strategic Planning at the global commercial real estate firm Cushman & Wakefield. And right in downtown, Joseph Bennett, a hairstylist who has been working in Toronto's underground path system for nearly 30 years. And it's great to welcome all of you to TVO tonight. Grant, get us started here because you represent the companies and the retailers which really do truly make up this hidden office economy. When you are looking at the retailers and the hospitality industry and the service providers, just let's start with this. How important would you say they are to the overall health of the city's economy?
Very important. If you look at the path, there's 1,200 retail services and storefronts, well over 5,000 people employed. It's a very important driver. If you look at it, what's like right now, clearly the numbers are down. Many people are working from home, as you said. There are a great number of retailers that are open, and there is, clearly traffic on the path. I go down on a regular basis and spend time in the office. Probably the most important thing from our perspective right now is going to be around ensuring that this next batch of federal aid for small business rolls out in a timely fashion. I think that's going to be really important as we enter into stage 2 to look after small retailers. And a key focus we've had is around worker confidence. Like really what's important here is to get office workers back to the office. I mean, we are in a health emergency still, so we have to be cognizant of that. But a lot of work has been done in terms of ensuring the protocols are in place. Like you have to wear a mask in the path. And when I go down there, it's highly compliant. Everybody's wearing a mask. It's great. There's prompts for physical distancing everywhere. Public health advice is being adhered to. And I think probably one of the key messages for me in this conversation today, Steve, that I've got to get across to everybody is the office is not going away. The workers that these small retailers rely on, people like Joseph here with us today, they will come back. Businesses are always going to want to have, high quality office space for their employees, for employee growth and collaboration, particularly the large national headquarters that are located in the financial district in the path. And those workers, they're going to want a vibrant experience.
Okay, let me jump in here for a second, Grant, because you and I have both mentioned the path a number of times already, and I don't want to assume that everybody knows what that is, because if you're not familiar with the financial district in downtown Toronto, you may not know it. So Sheldon, let's go to top of page 2 here and bring this graphic up right now so we can explain to everybody who is unfamiliar with it what it is, because it is as the name suggests, it's a path of underground systems in the city that connects 75 different buildings to the so-called path. There are 2 major department stores on it. There are 9 hotels on it, numerous tourist attractions. There are 6 subway stations, along with Toronto's busiest transit hub, that's Union Station. And it actually is 30 kilometers long, 3.7 million square feet of retail space, 1,200 restaurants, shops, and services. It generates roughly, imagine this, $1.7 billion in sales annually in normal times. And there are an estimated 4,600 jobs in the path, and most importantly, when the weather gets awful in Toronto, as it always does every year, the path is a great place to hang out because you've got like a whole underground city there with lots of stuff to do. Samantha, pick up the story from there. Is there any sense of what percentage of workers in the office, who are in the office rather, and how many are still working remotely?
So we estimate right now only 2 to 10% of office workers have actually returned to the office. Our team is focused on returning people to the office and reducing or mitigating the risk of the virus spread. So we've implemented a lot of strategies for clients in Toronto and across Canada to do that, which are a mix of physical interventions and behavioral protocols to make sure that people can operate within their office environment and trust that everybody is doing the best they can do to reduce that risk of spread. However, we are still seeing that reduced rate of return. So while we have produced plans that actually maximize the capacity thus far and still let people be somewhat safe, we still see that reduced rate of return. And I think one of the reasons is the reluctance to take public transportation. We know from the TTC and the study they produced in the summer that ridership was down 86%. So psychologically, I think people aren't prepared to take public transportation, and that greatly affects the downtown population.
Have you been on the subway or streetcar or bus lately?
I have not. However, my son, who's a higher risk taker than me, has taken both, and he said, "Mom, it's perfectly fine."
I was just going to say that. I'm on it all the time. I mean, I'm on the subway quite frequently, and it's perfectly fine. I mean, everybody masks up, and if you don't have one, they'll hand you one as you walk in. And it really looks like, you know, so I guess what I'm getting at here is, you know, the TTC, I don't think is any longer a good enough explanation for why people aren't coming back, because the TTC seems perfectly safe. In which case, why do you think there's additional reluctance by people to come back? Because 2 to 10% of people back in those buildings is not very much.
Well, we may see it shift as the weather changes. So what I like to say is a Canadian uses any excuse to be outdoors in the summer. So we've had the summer, you know, Canada effect on the office environment. But now that kids have returned to school and we're going to start seeing colder weather, people might slip into the office more. Also, I think that working from home was a bit of a novelty at first, but that's sort of starting to wear thin. We are seeing that people are, you know, there is a productivity loss that's happening now that we didn't see in the summer months. And people are sort of getting wary of Zoom meetings, so they're having Zoom fatigue. So I do think we'll probably start to see an increase. Now, of course, if we're all indoors and we start to see an increase in the virus more so than we are now, then we're going to have that reversal. But let's say I'm positive that in October, November, we'll start to see a bit of an increase downtown. And then we'll see what happens, of course, you know, if people aren't behaving and we see more of the virus spread. So, of course, that's always the big factor.
Right, gotcha. Joseph, let's tell your story here. Where do you work in the path?
I work at a salon in the Standard Life Center. And I've worked in the TD Center. I've worked at Richmond Adelaide Center.
So right in the heart of the financial district.
Right in the heart of it, yes.
And when business is normal, in other words, when there's not a global pandemic affecting the path and everything else, how's business?
Business is fantastic because if you have 40 floors above you that are full of people and thousands of people walking by your door, you tend to have business. But now we're down 90% at our business.
Well, that certainly jibes with the numbers Samantha just gave us. So what, are you still going into work?
I've gone from four 10-hour days to 1 3-hour day a week.
Yikes. What's that done to your bottom line?
Well, there's no bottom line left, Steve. Like, it's just, you know, so I'm doing hair at people's homes. I've become a traveling hairdresser is what I've become.
Do you like that?
Not really my gig, no.
What do you think is going to, I mean, obviously, you know, given what Samantha just said, we need people to feel comfortable enough to return to their offices, which will create the foot traffic that'll put you back in business. What's it going to take for that to happen?
Well, if there's not another outbreak, we'll be okay. But I think people are very scared at this point. I'm very fortunate, Steve, because I can walk to work. Like, I don't need to be afraid of transit, but my partner takes transit all the time. And it's never been better, he says. So, you know, like, I just think we need to take and start moving people back in slowly.
And as you go to work down there, Joseph, do you have any, you know, do you have any fears about contracting the virus or, you know, engaging with people, that kind of thing?
Steve, I've become the Lysol and the Clorox king and the alcohol king at my salon. So I'm not really, we're safe. We're in masks. We're in rubber gloves. So I'm not really worried about, and we tend to do people who, there's absolutely zero walk-ins to our business now. So people who are coming, we've known for 20 plus years.
I think we've got to get Eileen Davila on speed dial, Joseph, because you'd be a great goodwill ambassador for public health in this city. There's no doubt about it. Okay, Grant, pick up the story if you would. Give us a sense of what's happening to the rents that businesses are paying right now, because clearly with not enough business coming in, I don't know how they're paying their rent. So what's happening?
Well, an important element that the federal government brought out was the commercial rent program, CECRA. and that ran until the end of September, so it's expired now. There are reports that they do plan to roll out another small aid package, small business aid package, and that'll be retroactive to October 1st. And so, the rent is the biggest fixed cost these places have, these businesses, and so it's really important we get that in place to help them over the hump. It's a lifeline for them. And clearly, tenants and landlords have ongoing conversations. That's part of the relationship they have. And certainly these landlords understand what is happening to tenants, and they're doing whatever they can to help them with regard to that. But I think the key thing here is this aid package is absolutely critical for small business right now, because we do have a bit of a hump left that we're going to have to get through.
Well, the provincial government made an announcement just the other day, worked out to something like $1,000 for each small business that was eligible for it. How much of a help does that help?
I think the one you're talking about is the personal protective equipment, so that certainly helps. But this particular one is specifically with regard to the rent. The secret program allowed the small business only pay 25% of the rent, and it was applied for by the landlord. The new program, we're hearing, will be applied for by the business, which is great, puts it in their control. So, but it's important we get that money into their hands immediately. So, these conversations are underway, and I think we'll see something quite quickly there.
Right. Secret, just for those, because there's a lot of acronyms out there, Canada Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance. But that was, if I understood that program right, the landlord had to apply for it and play ball, and not that many of them, as it turns out, wanted to do that because it meant them taking a 25% haircut. So how successful was the program?
There's various reports on it. Certainly with the landlords I talk to and I have a relationship with on a regular basis, they all applied for it on behalf of their tenants that qualified. One of the issues with this program was, not everybody qualified, depending on your loss of business, the size of your business. So, I think there was limitations understood with that, and they are looking to address those limitations in the new program. And as I said, they have to get it out there, it needs to happen now.
Joseph, I hope you didn't take offense when I said the landlords have to take a 25% haircut on things. I didn't mean to disparage your business there. Just for the record, just for the record. Samantha, you're the landlord, right? So how successful was this program from your vantage point?
Well, we're not quite the landlord, but we do represent a lot of landlords, and some landlords didn't apply for it, and some did. So we've had mixed results. We do have folks at Cushman and Wakefield who can help with that, though. They do help people apply for it and help with that program. That's part of our asset services group. So I am happy to hear that the businesses can now apply for it directly, because I think that's a much better solution than having that extra step in the middle. I also know landlords didn't really want to be responsible for it. So I think it was a bit of an onerous task on them. So hopefully we'll see some pickup with that, the small businesses. I just hope the process is not too onerous on them or too bureaucratic, because I know some small businesses are barely hanging on. I mean, rents are extremely expensive downtown in the Path, and small businesses, operate on very lean margins. So
maybe you could fill in some blanks there, because again, people who are outside the capital city of the province may not appreciate how much you do have to pay for rent in the financial district. Can you put some numbers on that for us?
Sure. So it's not unheard of for a small business, let's say that's even, 300 square feet, to pay $10,000 a month. So, and some small businesses, retail businesses can pay $25,000 a month. And as we all know, retail is a very hard industry, and it's been decimated, of course, by COVID. And so when you're paying $25,000 a month and trying to meet your payroll, it's a very hard task to manage.
Joseph, what did you guys do at the salon in terms of trying to deal with issues around rent?
Catherine spoke to the landlord, and I think she's got the 25% rebate or whatever. I really don't know what's happened with that. I just know that she's working 6 days a week. She's going in to try to stay afloat. She's going in from Monday to Saturday.
And did she work something out with the landlord?
She worked something out, yes, but you know what I mean? When you're 90 to 95% down in business, what you work out with the landlord from $10,000 or $12,000 a month is not a lot. I've worked at a salon in TD Center where they were paying $20,000 a month. So $20,000 a month with 25% is still, if there's no money coming in, or there's no traffic, you're not really ahead with anything, I feel, anyway.
Sure. Has she had to lay off staff?
Pardon me?
Has she had to lay off staff?
No, our staff are all self-employed in her salon.
I see.
So she's not like we're all contractors there. So she's been very fortunate with that. So we can come and go and pick and choose our own hours. So
So do you rent a spot from her? Is that how it works?
yeah, yes. So well, like she takes a commission cut from me.
She
So
does.
really, it's like rent. So it's like with myself, Steve. I'm usually into Path at 7 in the morning to 5 in the evening, 4 days a week. Like when I was working full time, when I had clients versus because hundreds and hundreds of people would walk by our door a day. Now we probably have 50. Like I was in Wednesday and there was probably 15 people who walked by. So our tower's about a 2 to 5% capacity.
And I guess a lot of your business would have been just people spontaneously deciding, oh, I've got 15 free minutes. I'm going to jump in and get a haircut now?
Yes, exactly. You have that, especially men.
Yes.
Because men tend to be in a rush for everything. So
Gotcha. Well, let's put some more stats on the record here. And Sheldon, if you would, I'm on the bottom of page 3 here, because Cushman & Wakefield, that's Samantha's firm, recently did a global study on the future of office real estate. Here's what it found. The COVID-19 effect on office space will surpass the 2008 financial crisis with the steepest level of vacancies in the U.S., Canada, and European countries. The global office vacancy rate will rise from 10.9% pre-crisis, that's basically back in the fourth quarter of 2019, will go from 10.9% to 15.6% in the second quarter of 2022. Now, with economic and employment recovery, global office vacancy is expected to return to pre-crisis levels of approximately 11%, but they're looking at the year 2025 before that happens. And rents are expected to bottom out by the first quarter of 2022 and return to pre-crisis peak levels in 2025. All right, let's unpack a lot of the information there. Samantha, I guess the good news is you see a comeback coming. I guess the bad news is 5 years from now?
Well, not quite, because Toronto and Canada in general fares better than the global and U.S. statistics. So I'd like to put that in perspective for Toronto, if I may. So while those stats show a 10% vacancy globally, I think or so, I can't see the slides anymore, but I think that's what it said. Toronto really has been at 2% vacancy downtown for a number of years. We've had the tightest office market in all of North America, which means that we've had higher rents and less vacancy than any other city. However, right now that has grown to about 4.5%. So we've seen a number of sublets come on the market, which mean people who lease space normally are trying to shed space and lease it to someone else. So we've seen a little bit of that happen. However, we are still one of the lowest, if not the lowest, vacancy rate in all of North America, because we have a very robust tech market, et cetera. That doesn't mean office occupancy, of course. That just means people who are renting spaces. We also have forecasted for Toronto, we will see the recovery by 2024 rather than 2025. And we will see quite a lot of recovery by fourth quarter next year. So, but still, again, that does not translate into people actually returning to the office, which contributes to helping people like Joseph. So what we are doing, we've got a lot of programs in place. Globally, we've done a tremendous amount of research on the physical interventions and behavioral protocols to put into place so people can trust coming back to the office. So we are putting those programs into place, but I think it has to do with, of course, just building that trust. And that's the issue I think TTC is having. So yes, it probably is relatively safe. People in Canada are very compliant. We're wearing our masks, we're washing our hands, but we just have to help people feel that level of safety and get them back to the office place.
Well, Grant, let me pick up on the issue I hear about from lots of people, which is it's not that they have any lack of trust in the TTC and the subways, the buses and streetcars and so on. It's when I get to my office building and when I have to wait on the ground level to get up an elevator to go up 72 floors, it could take me 45 minutes to an hour and a half just to get up to the office if you're only allowing 4 people in an elevator at a time. How do you get around that conundrum?
Well, that's an interesting question. So I've seen the math on some of this, and I think to Samantha's point is that people are going to come back in a staggered fashion. So what we're going to find is they're not going to bring everybody back into the office at the same time. So it's not like you're going to have the same number of people necessarily going to a floor. And also, there's a lot of conversation about what I'd classify as more of a temporal aspect from the point of view of people are going to have staggered hours also, where, clearly some people will make a point of going in at 7 o'clock every day. And leaving at 3 o'clock, et cetera. So that is somewhat more manageable. I mean, there are protocols, very good protocols in place in all of the major buildings with regard to that. They have a consistent protocol around physical distancing for lineups and number of people in the elevator, et cetera. My experience currently, I go into the office on a regular basis. I'm there at least 1 day a week. And it's works fine, quite honestly. Now, to everybody's point, the numbers are lower. The numbers I've heard are somewhat higher than the 2 to 10%. I'm hearing, we were reaching closer to the 15% mark sort of after Labor Day. But it's really, people, the confidence piece around protocols that we've talked about, both in the office from Samantha's perspective and in the path overall and on TTC and Go Transit, et cetera, will be a key driver here. And it's important for people to know that those protocols are in place. They'll be, actually pleasantly surprised when they come down and they return to the office and see how well organized it is.
Okay, Grant, but if Samantha, if her prognostications turn out to be correct, and Toronto's situation is in fact more buoyant than, say, the rest of the world, United States, European Union, and so on, she's still anticipating that we don't get back to, approaching normalcy until a year from now. And I guess I need to ask you, what do you guys do for the next year?
Well, there I go back to my original point, quite honestly, Steve, that I started with is there clearly is a gap here that needs to be filled, and there needs to be targeted, specific federal funding for small businesses, like Joseph's and like hospitality, et cetera, that recognizes that this is beyond everybody's control. We're still managing a health emergency. And this is extended longer than probably any of us ever envisioned when it started back in March. And that'll be absolutely critical to maintaining, the quality of what people expect when they come back. I mean, Toronto is very fortunate. We're talking about AAA, office space, like high quality space with great amenities. We are well positioned in the global market. We just need to make sure that we make good policy decisions around supporting small business right now. And as the regulars come back, the trade will pick up.
Joseph, what would you like to see over the course of the next year in order to get more foot traffic in that building of yours?
I would like to see our mayor speak about the underground path a lot more. I've only heard him since June speak about it once, and our premier or whoever to take and put a lot more focus on the underground system, because everybody is worried about everything else that's out at street level, and there's no worry about where we are in the underground.
Do you think you've been a forgotten chapter in this whole drama?
We're like the lost city.
What's it going to take to get you found?
So people have to speak and bring it forth on the news, the media, to let them know that it, like as he said, the protocols and everything are in place down there. So you can't be in a more cleanly social distance, because everything is up to par down in the underground for people to come.
So you've arranged things in your salon to make sure that customers are 2 meters apart and all that business.
Yeah, our chairs were 6 feet apart. That has all been put in place since the end of June. Now we just need people to sit in the chair.
Right.
I'm coming, Joseph. I'm coming.
like Steve, I can have all the Lysol wipes and alcohol I want, but if I'm only washing me down, that's not really making me any revenue at all.
No, I get you, but somehow all of you have got to be able to convince. I'm not saying it's all on your shoulders, but you've got to convince people that this is a safe place to go, that they're going to want to go to try to get their lives back to normal. That sale has not yet been made, apparently. Is that fair to say?
Yes, that's fair to say, but a lot of people who've been mandated to work from home really aren't supposed to be down in the towers either, Steve. I hear that from clients also.
Gotcha.
So if they're mandated to work from home, they're not supposed to be down in the towers. So that's of no help to us either. So,
Samantha, do you think companies should start to advise their employees that it's now safe to return to work?
Well, I don't like to use the term safe because you can't say anything is 100% safe because the virus is invisible. However, I do feel that if they implement the right strategies, the physical interventions, with the behavioral protocols, and people buy into this, everybody has to buy into it, then we can produce or create an environment that really mitigates the risk of virus spread. So we've done that for our own teams. We rolled out the return to office for Cushman nationally, and we were our own guinea pig, and we're now rolling that out to clients across Canada. And if people follow the things that we recommend, I do believe that they can trust coming back to the workplace. But again, everybody has to buy into the strategy, because one rogue person who decides they don't want to wear their mask, or they don't want to wash their hands on a regular basis, or they get up and they walk around and are not social distancing, then of course that's sort of like the rotten egg in the whole dozen, right? So I think that you have to have that trust level with all your fellow employees.
Well, Grant and Joseph have already told us that they have started to go back into their places of work on a more or less basis. How about you? What are you doing?
I've been back twice. I wasn't on the phase 1 list to go back. And I actually asked to go back, and my own team told me, no, you weren't on the list. We're not going to let you back. But I'm on the list to go back in January.
And you anticipate that you will?
I anticipate that I will, although I would like to work flexibly, which is what we're seeing from a lot of people, that they would like to have a more flexible job style. So where I don't want to be 100% exclusively from home, I don't want to be 100% exclusively from the office either. So I would like to go in maybe 3 days a week, because I do find that, especially for people my age and older, this has provided a lot of work-life balance. So our stats show that we predict as many as 30% of people will want to continue to work from home long term, and a greater number than that will want to continue to have a flexible work environment. We also do see that due to physical distancing and increased circulation required in the space to mitigate the risk of virus, that we will see decompression in the office space. So let's say before we based our numbers, if you had 100 people in the office, we might only see 70 people in the office in the same amount of space long term. So there will be less density, which will also affect the downtown economy. Offsetting that, we have a number of new office buildings that are being built right now. So in the years to come, we will see more density in general in the CBD. But for a short time, I do expect there to be a decline in density.
What does CBD stand for?
A central business district.
Central
Not
Business District.
not marijuana or oil or whatever.
No, that's
That was a different show.
That's a different show, different acronym. Right. Well, to the extent that there has been, obviously there have been many takeaways from this pandemic, but one of them surely as it relates to how people work is that we're discovering that we actually many people, shouldn't say we, many people can and prefer to work at least some of the time now from home, as opposed to going into work, 5 days a week as they used to, or more in some cases. Grant, I wonder what you think that means. What does that portend for the demand on office space going forward, for whether employees are going to come back to the office in the numbers that they worked previously? What do you say on that?
I think where I would lean towards is that we're probably going to see some degree of a change in the ecosystem of how people work. And what I mean by that is, there will be, as we've heard here, more people who want to spend a day or two at home that might never have previously, quite honestly. I think we'll also see, to a point Samantha made, sort of a de-intensification of offices. There's been a huge, over the last decade, shrinking in the square foot allotted per employee. And I can see us moving back to physical setups that, go back to almost the private office environment, where actually your per square foot per employee actually goes up. So, the number of people on any given day may be somewhat less than it was, but this is not a situation where we're going to find that we're going to be running at these low numbers for an extended period of time. As people start to come back, we're into some of the early adopters now, and they're going to bring more people back with them. And as long as the environment's there, which is a critical point, that we've got to maintain the environment in terms of the quality of the experience, both in the offices, which we've done, and also, in the retail environment, more and more people will come back. And so, I'm very optimistic about this.
And just in our last 20 seconds, Grant, but before the people come back, businesses are going to have to get through that interim period. What percentage do you think are not going to make it?
Well, I can't speculate on that. I mean, this has been very challenging on retail and hospitality. I think the important thing now is that we have to focus our programs, federal programs and provincial programs, on targeted industries like that we know are going to really, really be hit hard during this period of time, and minimize the amount, in terms of damage to that. But we're very positive that these are very entrepreneurial people who find ways to do things if we give them the opportunity, and that's really what this is about. Make sure they have enough money to get by, and they'll find an opportunity to make sure they're going to be there when the better times return.
Well, we wish everybody well in that regard. And Joseph, can I just say that I think we did you a solid today. Sounds like Samantha wants to get her hair done at your place, so we'll hook you two up after this is all over, okay?
But Stephen, I'd like to say this to you too before we leave. Maybe the towers could think about giving people some type of break on the parking, because you would actually have people drive down to the salon and park. But with the price of parking down there with an empty parking lot, there's still no any type of break on parking for people to drive down to our business.
Oh, really? Joseph, are you saying that $35 for 4 hours of parking is too much? Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding. Grant Hume, Samantha Sinella, Joseph Bennett, really good of all of you to join us on TVO tonight, and sincerely, good luck to you all.
Thank you
very much.
Steve.
Thank you.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario. CPA Ontario is a regulator, an educator, a thought leader, and an advocate. We protect the public. We advance our profession. We guide our CPAs. We are CPA Ontario. And by viewers like you. Thank you.